My roommate David is surprisingly handsome, even at such a young age. It might sound a bit unusual to describe a guy that way, but if you saw him yourself, you'd realize I'm telling the truth. The moment I laid eyes on him, my heart started racing. I never expected to realize I was attracted to men like this. It hit me for just a second, but then I calmed down and decided to go ahead and try pursuing him, even though elders often say that failing to carry on the family line is the greatest sin. But if I don't try to win him over, there's no chance at all. I started feeling stuck. I'd pursued 2 girls before, but never tried chasing a guy. Should I really send him an Ultraman toy? The first step in pursuing someone is to change the contact name. I set David as a priority contact and named him Wife in my notes, and he's fully aware of it too. Are you implying that there's definitely something between us? No. In fact, everyone in our dorm has given David a truly unique nickname. The dorm leader, who thinks David is incredibly handsome, immediately named him David. The second roommate, known as the Game King, believes David is kind and thoughtful, so he renamed him Isabella. Compared to that, calling him my wife isn't really that strange, is it? David just gave a small smile when he saw my nickname. He treated it as a joke. Only I see this as a quiet little space where I hide my hidden feelings. I was constantly thinking about how to officially make my roommate just a name in my contacts, a real part of my life. After going back and forth, I still had no idea what to do. But in the age of the internet, if I'm stuck, someone out there probably isn't. So I posted a question on Jihu. How can you win over your roommate? The post sank without a trace, taking my hopes with it. 2 full days passed. No replies at all. It left me sighing heavily and struggling to eat properly. David noticed that I'd been feeling down lately, so he kept coming up with ways to cheer me up, even going so far as to say, "Oliver, haven't you always wanted to sleep with me? Why don't we just sleep together tonight?" The comment nearly made me fall off my chair. "Why you? How do you know that?" David pointed at my phone, his eyes crinkling with a mischievous grin. "I happened to see it when I was fixing your phone last time." Oh no, this is terrible. If I'm not mistaken, that's probably the note I wrote on my phone's sticky pad. If I could just spend one night with David, I'd feel completely fulfilled for the rest of my life. My palms were sweating and my voice trembled as I asked, "How much did you see?" David noticed my expression had changed. His smile faded, and he stepped closer to gently touch my face. "What's wrong? Your face is so red." "I just saw David and sleeping. I thought you might want to sleep in my bed." David's hand felt cool, but it was comforting when it touched me. The second one on the bed didn't seem happy and spoke up. "Hey, little brother, my bed is softer. Want to give it a try?" Oops. At night, I refreshed the post again, but still no one replied. Am I being locked in isolation or something? David finished soaking his feet and invited me to get into bed. I was at a loss. Are you really letting me sleep here?" David smiled gently. "We're both men. What's there to be afraid of?" "Not really, babe. I'm different from other guys. I'm really drawn to you." Too bad he couldn't hear these thoughts swirling in my mind. He climbed onto the bed and reached out his hand toward me, and the bed curtain was drawn open. I trembled as I climbed onto the ladder, my heart pounding like a drum. "Friends, I'm about to sleep with my crush. Our school has plenty of resources, so the bed is quite spacious. Even though 2 men who are both meters tall would be a bit close together, it's not too uncomfortable." With just one last step, David reached out and gently pulled my hand. I was quickly inside the hidden space. I didn't expect someone who looked so gentle to have such strength. This was the first time I truly saw the inside of David's bed. There were decorative items, a bookshelf, everything neat and tidy, with a soft, pleasant scent. I was the first man to be on David's bed. The thought filled me with joy and lifted my spirits completely. First, David was facing away from me, while I kept refreshing my unpopular posts. Suddenly, he turned around for no reason. I quickly covered the screen of my phone out of surprise. "What are you looking at?" "Thinking about how to get closer to you." I forced a smile and said, "Just browsing TikTok." David seemed a bit down. "This is so boring." Then he moved a little closer to me. "Let's chat for a bit." David was too close, and I could feel his breath brushing against my face as he spoke. I instinctively took a small step back, my spine pressing firmly against the wall. There was nowhere left to go. I forced a smile, my voice tight. What should we talk about?" David suddenly reached out and lightly touched my neck. His fingers were cold, making me shiver. I quickly grabbed his hand. Why are your hands so cold? David looked at me, his voice low and soft. I have a cold body. He shifted closer to me. Can you come a little nearer? I'm feeling chilly. Before I could react, he moved even closer, our breaths nearly brushing against each other. One hand slid over my waist and gently rested on my back, pulling me forward slightly. We were almost pressed together. I held my breath, my heart pounding like it might burst. David remained calm and composed, his eyes crinkling at the corners. He leaned in close to my ear, his voice as light as a feather. Shall I help you with something? Help. What kind of help? The words hit me like a thunderclap, leaving my mind completely blank. I instinctively glanced around. It was 11 at night, and only the dim light from second brother's bed was still on. The rest were all dark. No one was paying attention over here. But what on earth did David mean by that? Could he have figured out my tangled thoughts? I trembled so badly I could feel my teeth chattering. What do you mean? David mimicked my hushed tone, a hint of amusement in his voice. We're both guys. Helping each other out is perfectly normal. Is that really normal? This is completely off the charts. I was panicking and reached out to push against his shoulder as he kept moving closer. This isn't right, you should. Before I could finish speaking, I acted on impulse and shoved hard. David wasn't expecting it and fell backward, hitting the edge of the bed. Then I quickly sprang up and flipped off the bed. Alright, our bed is a top bunk. As a result, I tumbled straight off the bed and landed on the floor. Luckily, there was a ladder in the middle that caught me. When I opened my eyes again, I was staring at the ceiling. A sharp pain shot through my leg. David was coming down from the ladder. Old 2 had already leaned over me. Young Master 4, are you still with us? I was rushed to the hospital near school. It was too late at night, so David took on the responsibility of driving me to the hospital alone. The main reason was that he had a car, which made things much more convenient, and the primary responsibility naturally fell on him. Registration, picking up medicine, and payment. He kept rushing back and forth without stopping. I felt really guilty. I'm sorry to bother you like this. After finally getting everything settled, exhaustion showed on his face. Looking at the cast on my leg, he lowered his eyes weakly. I should be the one saying sorry. His words brought that moment. When he said he'd help me, uncontrollably into my mind, I felt a tightness in my throat. Was helping me just a joke? David turned his head, and in his deep eyes, I saw my own anxious expression reflected. Just as I was about to give in under his gaze, he suddenly smiled. Then what? After that, he gently touched my leg and said, I was just trying to tease you. David kept his head down, so I couldn't see the expression on his face. I could only tell from the way he spoke that he felt regret and guilt. I reached out and held his wrist, saying, It's okay. It was just a minor injury. The doctor said no hospital stay was needed. David seemed very tired. He nodded slightly before resting his head against my shoulder and closing his eyes. My phone made a soft chime. I was afraid the sound might wake him, so I quickly pulled it out and turned on silent mode. I took a closer look and finally saw a response to the post I'd shared. Just one reply. Recently got together with my roommate. Want me to share some tips? Let's connect on WeChat. I was thrilled and quickly exchanged WeChat information. As soon as the friend request went through, the first message from them was, First things first, you need to follow his lead on everything and never argue back. The next day at noon, we hurried back to our dormitory. David gently helped me to my seat. The elder brother and the younger brother quickly gathered around. The elder brother regretted his decision. You really had to squeeze in with David. I should have stopped you back then, the younger brother chimed in beside him. That little bed just wasn't big enough for the two of you. Luckily, they only thought I'd fallen off because the bed was too small. I rubbed my nose awkwardly and said, Got it. I won't do that again. Before long, summer vacation arrived once more. As expected, I couldn't get a ticket past my relatives again. No matter whether it was the high-speed train or regular rail, only standing tickets were left. Back in the day, I'd have taken a standing ticket without hesitation. It's not like 20 hours is anything to worry about. I can manage it, but right now, I glance at my injured leg, which still twinges with every little movement. I've decided to just rent a place near campus instead. My older brother and younger brother had already packed their things, and when they heard my plan, they looked utterly confused. Why rent a place? You're working here? I felt like I was about to cry. I can't just fly home if I didn't get a ticket, my younger brother suggested. School probably won't kick us out for another week. Maybe you could try grabbing a ticket again? I waved my hand. Forget it, last year there were only standing tickets left. I'll just rent a place instead. David happened to walk in with takeout. Overhearing us, his face showed confusion. Renting a place? I nodded. No ticket got, so I'll have to rent a room. David set the takeout on my table and said casually, I've got an extra apartment. David is kind and thoughtful. Even though I knew his help was just from our roommate relationship, my heart still skipped a beat without meaning to. He's definitely the one I've got my eye on, but reason still won over desire. I shook my head and said, I can't keep relying on you. Renting a place isn't that expensive. These past few days, he's been going up and down the stairs because of my leg. He was either bringing me groceries and meals or taking me to my checkups. I almost felt like we'd switched roles. I should be the one taking care of him. This time, I absolutely can't burden him anymore. After hearing my words, David let out a soft sigh. I usually only go to that house during winter and summer breaks. It's just me there, so it can get kind of lonely. I pressed my lips together lightly. Honestly, if he were the dorm leader or some kind of game champion, I'd have moved in without hesitation. But the problem is, it's David. Just looking at him normally makes me blush. If I were stuck living alone with a guy like that for a whole month, what would even happen? Thinking about it, I shook my head vigorously. Suddenly, I remembered the relationship mentor I'd met online. He claimed to be a guy who successfully won over his roommate in just 1 month. He said, guys tend to have their own opinions, so going along with them a bit can earn you extra points. Just for those extra points, I turned my head back the way it had been and said to David, a little shyly, sorry to bother you. David smiled warmly at my words. It made me feel completely melted inside. I stepped down from the car, helped in by David as we entered the house. The moment I walked inside, I felt deeply glad I had made this choice, because the room was just like its owner, clean and tidy, with a gentle, pleasant scent in the air. David gently guided me to sit on the sofa. He also turned on the television, letting me pick my own channel. Then he quickly went off again to carry both of our suitcases. After finally getting back home, I hadn't even had a chance to relax before I saw him rushing around again. I felt extremely guilty, but David seemed perfectly fine. No problem, these aren't heavy at all. Finally, everything was organized. David headed to the shower, still carrying the scent of sweat. The sound of running water filled the bathroom. It made me feel pleasantly excited and restless. Before I could settle down, David came out wrapped in a bathrobe. In his hand was a plastic bag he must have found somewhere. He stood in front of me, blocking my view of the TV. I awkwardly turned my head away. I didn't dare to look at his bare chest or his damp hair. But then I heard David's voice. Come on, I'll help you get to the shower. I was stunned, but then he was already right in front of me. David reached out to grab my arm, and I was suddenly flustered and scrambling. I held onto the sofa to steady myself while trying to avoid his hand. No, I can do it myself. David frowned at my unsteady steps. By yourself? What if you fall? I thought about it. My leg really hurt with every movement, and pushing myself would only make things worse. I ended up blushing and nodding, letting him gently support me as we moved slowly toward the bathroom. The bathtub was already filled with warm water, steam rising softly, the air lightly scented with bath soap. David crouched down and carefully wrapped the plastic bag around my injured leg, securing it tightly with several wraps. He gently pressed along the edges with his fingers to make sure it was sealed properly. I glanced at him secretly. His head was lowered, and his expression was both focused and tender. In that moment, I suddenly realized how truly happy I felt just being taken care of by him. I never expected that David's large house would only have one master bedroom. That meant we'd have to share a room, and there was only one bed. I hesitantly suggested, maybe I could sleep on the floor? David looked puzzled. Since we're both guys, why would you need to sleep on the floor? I felt speechless at his words. For a moment, I couldn't think of anything to say in reply. Instead, David's expression grew thoughtful. Unless you're interested in me? David's gaze turned curious, scanning over me with a lingering look. It felt like he was staring right through me. Feeling awkward, I quickly changed the subject. I'm not bothered by it. I just worry you might be picky about cleanliness. The last time the dorm leader took a sip of his milk tea without asking. David didn't say anything out loud, but that unpleasant expression is still clearly etched in my mind. Besides, someone as careful and neat like him having a strong preference for cleanliness makes perfect sense. Most importantly, just now when he was helping me bathe, he used shower gel 3 times. That level of thoroughness was truly shocking. If he didn't have a cleanliness preference, I'd find that hard to believe. As expected, David's brows furrowed slightly for a moment, but then relaxed again just as quickly. He said, "You didn't ask me about my cleanliness preferences the last time you slept in my bed." Forgot about that part. My thoughts started to shift. It seemed David probably didn't have a strong aversion to mess. Otherwise, he would have stopped me last time when I climbed onto the bed. We ended up lying on either side of the bed, about 1.5 meters apart. There was still room for one more person. My phone chimed softly. There was a new WeChat message. I opened it. It was from the master. 2 brief yet meaningful sentences. Men are most easily drawn in by subtle teasing. A little bit of playful attention can spark their interest. David holds a special place in my heart. He's like the full moon in the night sky. You can admire him from afar, but not get too close. But if I keeping my distance like this, I'll never find a partner in life. Thinking about that, I quietly made up my mind and inched slightly to the right. David didn't react at all. I glanced at the time. It must have been sleep. That gave me more courage than before. I made a bold move straight to the right. My hand finally touched David's pajamas. The silk fabric felt smooth and soft to the touch. Now, our distance was only a few centimeters apart. I forgot that he was just sleeping, not dead. David rolled over suddenly, pressing my hand under his waist. I didn't have time to pull away and let out a small cry of discomfort. My sound fully woke him up. He opened his dazed eyes, meeting my face with a confused expression. I quickly pulled my hand out from under his waist. David seemed still caught in dreams, his eyes on my face but unfocused. After staring at me for a moment, he suddenly lowered his head. He pressed his lips firmly against mine, then pulled me into a tight embrace, his voice soft and gentle. "Good girl, go back to sleep." I was completely flustered. It wasn't until 2 in the morning that I started to feel drowsy. I slept straight through until noon the next day. I sat up, my hair sticking out in every direction. The hazy memories from last night began to come back clearly. I suddenly covered my mouth. Last night, I was kissed by David. Who was still half awake and dazed. But why would he kiss me? Could it be? The thought sent a shiver down my spine. Did he accidentally take me for someone else while half asleep? Does David have a partner now? Can't be wrong. It can't be wrong. If he didn't have someone special, who would suddenly kiss another person while half asleep? Why wasn't he sleepwalking? Why wasn't he snoring? Yet it was specifically him going over to kiss someone. It's clearly that he's already in a relationship and living together. Last night, he was half awake and thought I was his partner. So he kissed me. I tugged hard at my hair, feeling dizzy and disoriented. I've lost someone I cared about. I hadn't even gotten a chance to say how I felt, and now I had to admit this connection was over before it truly began. I ran my hands through my hair, trying to clear my head. I was trying to come to terms with what had happened. A deep sense of sadness spread through my whole body. I slumped into the pillow, feeling defeated. Then I heard a light knock on the door. David stood in the doorway, wearing a blue scarf around his neck. He seemed in good spirits, his voice filled with warmth and cheer. "Dinner's ready." I lifted my head up with a determined effort. "Okay, I'm coming right away." David stepped forward with quick strides. He placed his hand on my forehead. "Why are you so out of it? Did you catch a fever?" He still carried a faint scent of food, making my stomach growl. I felt a bit embarrassed, and David gave a gentle smile. "Ah, I see. You're just hungry." The table was set with an elaborate spread. Coincidentally, everything on the table happened to be my favorite dishes. David didn't stop smiling as he placed a piece of rib into my bowl. "Eat more. It'll help build up your strength." I picked it up and took a bite, but it tasted bland. My mind was elsewhere, whether David had a romantic partner or not. Until I figure it out, no amount of good food would satisfy me. I casually brought up, "With cooking skills like yours, your partner must be lucky." As I said, I kept glancing at his expression. Unexpectedly, David looked straight at me, and our eyes met face to face. He smiled and said, Yeah, whoever has me as a boyfriend is really lucky. Sure enough, that tone was unmistakably from someone who's in love. I suddenly had no appetite at all. Looking up at David, I said with a slight edge in my voice, "When did you start dating? Why didn't you tell the guys?" David remained completely calm, giving a quiet reply, "I'm not seeing anyone." Those words instantly lifted the heavy stone off my chest. My voice lightened with hope. "Oh, so that's how it is. I thought you were already seeing someone." Before I could even feel happy for more than a moment, he dropped another bomb. "But I have someone I'm interested in." The stone that had just fallen back into my chest now surged up again, heavy and tight. My smile couldn't even form. "Really? Is it someone from our school?" David took a sip of his soup, seeming indifferent. "Yes." I felt a sudden rush of frustration, like someone had gotten there first. After all, love needs to be mutual, but I've been keeping an eye on him all this time. No idea how someone else slipped in right under my nose. I acted casual. "Oh, you really hid that well." I had no clue at all. Then I looked at him. "Does that person know?" David shook his head, his expression tinged with sadness. "I haven't told him yet." A bitter taste filled my mouth. I really wanted to speak up. "David, don't go after him. Look at me instead. You've got someone who's been fond of you for a long time. A bit of a fool, but loyal. Think about him, okay?" But in the end, I forced a smile and encouraged him. "Go ahead and tell him. You're such a good person. No one would say no." "Really?" David hesitated slightly, staring intently at me. "If it were you, would you say yes?" I was lost in sorrow, completely overwhelmed by his words. David's hopeful look only deepened my jealousy and frustration. Who could it be that makes David so unsure even about something as simple as asking someone out? He's David after all. He's someone I could never have. I looked at him, thought for a long time, and then nodded firmly. "Yes, go ahead. No one could say no to you." Keeping a distance while subtly drawing someone in can make a man truly captivated. I stared at the message from Master, my brows furrowed into a deep frown. I typed quickly, "What if he already has someone else? Already taken, huh? In that case, I'd suggest stepping back. We shouldn't do something against our values. There are plenty of good men out there, no big deal. Just find another one." I scratched my head, unsure how to respond for a moment. This uncertainty lingered until David invited me to watch a movie. I took the ticket, my eyes wide open. "Private cinema?" David didn't seem too bothered. "The store's running a promotion. Private rooms are only 9 yuan 90. Oh, that really is affordable." But I ended up even more conflicted. I kept flipping the ticket over in my hands. "You shouldn't have invited me." David paused mid-motion as he was putting things away. "What's wrong?" I smiled. "This is such a great chance. You should go ask the person you like. You could even make your feelings clear right after the movie ends." David didn't say anything, his head lowered, so I couldn't see his expression. He definitely wouldn't want to. I was frustrated. "Just go for it. How can you be sure he'll say no if you never even try?" At that moment, I forgot completely that David was the one I had feelings for. I felt frustrated by how hesitant he was when it came to matters of the heart. I kept urging him, "What if he likes you too? You won't know unless you say something." David lowered his gaze, his expression a bit awkward. "But he seems to pull away from my touch." Oh, I was caught off guard, but seeing David's eyes grow dimmer, I quickly added, "Maybe he's just shy?" David looked up at me, and it seemed like my words had reached him. I pressed on. "If you never tell him how you feel, you'll never know what he's thinking. Relying only on your own guesses won't get you the real truth." David took my hand, his tone noticeably lighter. "So, can you help me check things out if I ask him to meet up? He's someone worth guiding." Even though I was hurting inside, but seeing the person I like so happy, I couldn't help but relax my expression. "Still, wouldn't it be better to meet somewhere more public?" David shook his head. "It's a proper place. He doesn't mind." "What does official or unofficial have to do with it? Couldn't you just take them somewhere like a cafe instead? And earlier you said you didn't even want to touch them. Why are you suddenly okay with going to a private cinema now?" I had plenty of questions swirling in my mind, but seeing how happy David looked, I didn't feel right pushing for answers. I ended up being half dragged out the door. By the time all the fruit platters were served, his romantic interest still hadn't shown up. I was mentally preparing to keep a close eye on things. After waiting so long, David finally asked, Is there any movie you'd like to watch? Brother, are you still thinking about movies right now? Didn't you forget your serious business? I cleared my throat and said, is the person you like still not here? Hearing me, David gave a faint smile and said, she's already here. I was puzzled. I looked left and right. I even reached under the sofa to check. I was puzzled. Where is he? I turned around and met David's smiling eyes. Right here. A phone was gently placed in my hands. I lifted it up. The front camera was on. The screen showed my confused expression. David chuckled. What do you think of him? I gave a balanced response. Handsome, responsible, and most importantly, loyal. I set the phone down and looked back at David, whose smile was warm. Are you kidding me? David stopped smiling and looked at me seriously. If I said it was real, would you cut ties with me? I nodded. Yes. David let out a soft, wry smile. Why? I replied, because I don't want to be just friends. I want to be more than that. David stared at me, stunned. After a long silence, he finally smiled, his eyes glistening. So, does this mean I've succeeded in confessing? I didn't say anything, just held his gaze for a while. I sighed with mild frustration. After all I've done these past few days learning skills, seeking guidance, doing everything I could to win you over. Why didn't you say anything sooner? He said nothing, gently leaning in to kiss me. Later that night, I sent a message to the master. Thank you so much for your help. I finally won her heart. The other side showed typing indicators several times. Finally, they replied, well, you're really something else. I explained. He wasn't seeing anyone, and I didn't interfere with anyone else's relationship. On the other end, I couldn't help but laugh at the awkward exchange. Several years later, it was autumn, and ginkgo leaves covered the ground in front of the Civil Affairs office, like a golden carpet spread out all around. I held David's hand tightly, my pocket full of our marriage certificate as we walked out together. Oliver, from today on, you're officially my husband. I couldn't help but smile. Yeah. Wife. From that moment on, the person in my phone's contact list named wife finally became real.